What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you saw my last video, you saw that I did the 5 things I like the most about being a labor and delivery nurse. If you're new here, my name is Margaret. I have been a labor and delivery nurse for about a year now, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about the 5 things that I dislike the most about labor and delivery. So please keep in mind, this is my own experience at my own hospital. You might have a different experience or, hear different things from different labor and delivery nurses. This is just kind of how I feel after a year on the job. So we'll start with number 5. So I really dislike when I can't give my patients as much one-to-one support as I would like. So I work in a hospital where we are always 2-to-1 unless we have like a slow-ish day and I get to have one patient. And 2-to-1 for a lot of people sounds like a really good ratio, and all my med-surg girlies out there, like, I feel you. I know that 2-to-1 is like a dream, but sometimes with labor and delivery, I feel like some of my patients really need that one-to-one support. And we get to be one-to-one obviously when the patient is pushing. I'm by the bedside and I don't leave during that, but even throughout the labor process, especially for my moms who aren't gonna get an epidural and might just need a little extra hands-on care, I kind of wish that I had more time for them. And we have a lot of great support staff. Like, we have some fantastic doulas that we have in my hospital, which I'm really, really lucky about. So if someone needs, a little extra care and someone to stay in the room, we do have those kinds of people available. And a lot of partners are really great and helpful. But I just personally wish that I could be there for, a little more of their labor and helping them in positioning and walking around and on the birthing ball and just giving that extra comfort, just to coach a little bit more and be a little more hands-on. A lot of times I do get to be, but sometimes I feel like I'm very torn in a different direction, especially if I have other patients who are more critical and just need my attention more. And from a medical standpoint, it doesn't necessarily mean that those low-risk moms don't also need support and care. So it can be a little frustrating sometimes, and I think as I'm becoming a better nurse and I have better time management, I'm able to, take my limited time and make the most of it. Number 4, hectic situations and being like rushed to the OR. So if you're in labor and delivery, you know that things can turn on a dime. Everything can be fine, everything can be going just dandy, and the next thing you know, you're calling a condition and you're headed to the OR. And these situations, especially as I, get more experienced, are very controlled. Even if they feel hectic to like our patients and their families, like, we know as healthcare providers and nurses, like, exactly what we need to do. Like, we have our team, we know what our roles are, our priority is our patient's safety and getting mom and baby, to a safe spot. So I feel fine about it, like, now. But there's something about, rushing back to the OR for a C-section or even like a hectic delivery where we might need NICU there that, like, to this day just stresses me out. I think it's because I just want to know that everything's going to be okay, and I want to make sure that I don't miss anything and that I'm doing everything that I need to be doing. And also, like, those situations can be really traumatic for the patients, and I really, really feel for my patients. A little tip: if you're a labor and delivery nurse and you find like yourself, you're in a condition or you need to get a lot of people in the room, your job, you have a million jobs. You have to wear a million hats, and we all know that nurses have a lot to do. But one of your jobs is to kind of help the patient. And don't forget that she is there and she needs to hear like what is going on. So for me, my number one priority, if we're gonna, this might be different in other hospitals, but we have a condition O button. So we hit the condition O and then everyone and their mother comes running in. And if we're gonna do that, usually I'm the one who hits the O, and then I will go immediately over to my patient and be like, hey, a ton of people are about to join this birthday party. We're all here to help you. It might get a little bit overwhelming, but hang in there and I will explain things kind of as I can. And I think that that's really comforting because your patient needs to know that even though things are about to get chaotic, that you've got it under control. Those situations can always just be nerve-wracking because you just want what's best and you never want to see it happen, but if it does, you just have to like hang in there and just do the best you can. Okay, so number 3 is kind of along the same lines, and it's emergencies like shoulder dystocia and cord prolapse. So a shoulder dystocia is when the baby's shoulder gets stuck during pushing, like on the way out, like the head has come out and the shoulder is stuck. And there are some maneuvers you need to do, and you start a timer, and it just creates, like, I just start sweating like immediately because I'm just thinking like, we gotta get this baby out. You have to help mom cooperate, but you don't want to freak her out. And I just, no matter how many times it's happened, I always just sweat. And I'm so lucky. Every one of my shoulders has gone successfully and we've maneuvered the baby out. But you know, sometimes you just have those big babies that just don't want to fit. And I'm like, please, baby, let's go. Because it just can be really nerve-wracking. And then you end up like hectically calling the NICU and just trying to get people up there. And yeah, I think these 2, 4, and 3 are just about like when things go wrong, you just never wish that on a patient, especially like a cord prolapse is an emergency. You have to get back to the OR. And then when you're in the OR, this is kind of like what I was trying to say with the last one. When you're a circulator in the OR, you have a lot of responsibility. You know, the anesthesiologists have their job, the surgeons have their jobs, the scrub techs have their jobs, and you have like all of their jobs. Like you need to listen to anesthesia, you need to listen to the doctors, you need to listen to the scrub, and you need to be getting everyone everything that they need and trying to comfort your patient, especially in an emergency when they are nervous and they didn't expect to go back to the OR and they need to be aware of what's going on. So there are parts of that job that I dislike. I just don't like getting yelled at by a bunch of people, and I don't like feeling scrambled and like I need 15 hands. Like, how do I set up the patient and associate them to the monitor and get you like hooked into your gown and do a count? And I don't want that to freak anyone out. Like, being a circulator, you learn how to do it, and like hopefully you have people there to support you and can help you with these things. But I've had some times in the OR where I have come out and just been like so frustrated with how it went and felt very just overwhelmed by what was expected of me, feeling like that was too much for one person. And I think that can happen a lot in labor and delivery, and probably other nursing units too, where you get in situations where you have to wear a lot of hats and do a lot of things, and people expect you to be able to be in 2 places at once. And I know nurses are fantastic and smart and superheroes, but like, I have not mastered the being in 2 places at once thing yet. And you know, I think that I've learned a valuable lesson of knowing what I can do and what needs to be prioritized. And when you feel like really strong in that, it can help you navigate. So if someone asks me to do something and then immediately someone else asks me something, I feel strong at this point to be able to be like, yep, I'll do that for you. I just need to do this first, and then I'll be right there. Communication is key. If people know that you're listening, if people know that you're on top of it, it'll get you really far. But man, there are some situations where I just afterwards need to decompress and sit down and just get frustrated. And I think that's normal. So number 2, this is one that really grinds my gears, and it's unsupportive families and partners. When I started in labor and delivery, a lot of people were like, oh, that's so great, like it's always gonna be happy, and obviously like the lows are low but the highs are so high, and it's like few and far between. And I think when people say that, a lot of times they think of fetal loss, and I'll talk about that in a second. But there are some things that you see as a labor and delivery nurse that can be equally sad and tough to deal with and manage, like emotionally. I know that sometimes the harder patients for me are patients that are coming from like poor circumstances, or have maybe partners that aren't present, or they're physically present in the room but not like emotionally present, or they have tough families. It's really tough to see people in bad situations and know that they have to kind of go home to those bad situations, and maybe a baby's going home to a not so great circumstance. And those I think have stuck with me more. You know, it really grinds my gears when you see a partner like laying on the couch with the blanket over their head when, you know, we're doing things or like starting to push, or they're like complaining about how long it's taking her. Like, I've seen some crazy stuff. You see people just come in all sorts of circumstances and backgrounds, and there's sometimes drug abuse or alcohol abuse, and like I just feel so bad. Like, there really isn't a judgment there, and I know a lot of people say that, but for me it really isn't judging these people. It's just recognizing that there are bad circumstances out there and people get put into situations or they end up in situations that are just not ideal, and my heart really goes out to those people. Like, that is something that is just really hard for me to see, and knowing that I can be there and support these patients for the short time that they're with me, but when they go home, like, are they going to have that supportive partner? Are they going to have a stable house to go to? Do they have the resources to bring their babies to doctor's appointments? And do they have the finances for like a crib? And that can really get me down. You know, I just care so much about those patients and those babies, and you see them leave the hospital and you just hope the best for them. Well, the L&D can be amazing and exciting, and if you watch my last video, you'll know there's so many things to love about it. It's not just loss that can be difficult to deal with. Just know if you're going into L&D that those things can sometimes be the emotional burdens that you need to work on, like letting go, and you just see some difficult circumstances sometimes, and all you can do is be supportive in the moment and just give your patients all the love and care that you can. All right, so my last one, and probably the one that people expect the most, but it's fetal loss and poor outcomes. So like I said, when people think about the downsides of L&D, at least for me, this is kind of what I was thinking. And until you go through it, I think you don't really understand kind of what it's going to look like or feel like. And, you know, I think that's the same in all nursing, that until you experience those losses, like, it's hard to know how you're going to deal with it. Those are definitely some of the toughest days, when you have a patient who is experiencing a loss, or you have a patient that was not expecting a poor outcome and it happens. Sometimes there are poor outcomes for whatever reason, and it's just really tough and it breaks your heart. And then fetal loss is another thing that, you know, you almost have to train yourself on how to manage it, because even the most compassionate person, you know, can feel at a loss for what to say to a patient, how to care for them, how to manage this type of grief. You never really know what to say, and it's really hard to you can't take away someone's grief, right? And there's nothing you say is going to make them feel better. So it's all about, you know, having them know that they're supported and you're there for them, and that no matter what, you know, you're going to be there to like be their guide and their support and walk them through it. You know, those patients just stick with you. And I highly recommend that if you're a labor and delivery nurse, that you keep a journal of some sort that keeps track of your babies. It's very fun to reflect on your deliveries, and it's also nice to kind of keep those people who you were part of their like big day in one way or another, you know, just keep them kind of in a little memory in a journal for yourself, because you'll be surprised. You know, I'm at about 100 deliveries at this point, and I still love going back. I remember so many of my patients and their stories and getting to know them, and it's just so great. So this video is kind of a mess. It was kind of just like a thought dump, but I hope it kind of gave you a insight into some of the more difficult aspects of labor and delivery. If you have any questions or thoughts about anything that I talked about today, leave it in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a video. I'll see you in the next one.